Now have the interesting opportunity to watch a video together. And this is from a gentleman named Andrew Crapuchettes. Crapuchettes. Okay, so I was practicing all morning. And it's a very interesting gentleman. I wish he could be here because we would have a lot of questions for him. But let me tell you a little bit about him. He started RedBalloon in 2021 as a solution to the ever-growing problem of government overreach and cancel culture invading the American workplace. RedBalloon connects like-minded businesses and Americans who seek the freedom to work without the fear of discrimination against personal beliefs, infringement on constitutional rights, or invasion of medical privacy. Andrew is almost 30 years in the tech world. He's 20 years as CEO, and he's had 6 successful exits across multiple businesses and multiple kinds of buyers. He loves to build strong organizations that drive value for investors and are a deep blessing to employees and customers. Andrew is a father of 5. Well, there's another organization right there. A board member for the ACCS and loves great food. So let's enjoy his message to us. I haven't seen it either. I'm really intrigued to find out.
Hello, my name is Andrew Crapuchettes, and I'm sorry I can't be with you today, but I wanted to share 3 things with you. I want to tell you a little bit about my story, about how I got to where I am, and tell you about RedBalloon, my current adventure in business. And then the last thing is I have spent a lot of years trying to build very biblically sound, godly business cultures. And I want to talk about some of the lessons that I've learned that I hope are really edifying to you and can bring you a lot of value in your business. So those are the 3 things we're going to cover. We're going to run through this real quick, and I'm grateful for your time and attention. First of all, Andrew Crapuchettes is my name, and yes, that is a real last name, Crapuchettes. Unfortunately, you could imagine a really fun name to grow up with. And I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. I grew up a dot-com kid. Actually didn't manage to make it out of high school. I started working at a dot-com very early on. And it was a wild time. We raised a ton of money, built some really interesting technology businesses. Unfortunately, also ran out of all that money because that's what happens when you get other people's money and you're not wise with it. So a lot of lessons learned there. At the ripe old age of 22, I got tired of living in the Bay Area, tired of the traffic and the liberals, and so I moved up to Moscow, Idaho, where I live now, married to the beautiful Elise, and we have 5 children and 3 massive dogs. I live on 60 acres, 10 minutes from the office, but I digress. So that's what happened to get me to Idaho. When I came here, I realized there weren't a lot of great jobs. There weren't jobs where people could support families, they could put their kids in Christian education if they wanted to, where they could engage in their community in the way that I think is actually really productive for Americans to do. And so I started to create jobs because I thought God has given me skills and abilities. I should use those to create jobs. One of the first businesses I started or helped start was EMSI, Economic Modeling Specialist International. It was a labor market data company, which sounds super boring. I get that. Because, well, economics, that is the dismal science. But what I found is that labor market data is actually really meaningful to individuals. And let me tell you why. You think about the amount of information you have on your phone, and to be able to decide where you're going to go to dinner tonight, where you're going to buy a house, where you're going to go on your next vacation, your next trip. This is all really easy to get information on your phone. But if you have big life decisions, like should I ask for a raise? What business is going to be productive in our economy? What access to labor do I have? Where should I go to college? What program should I take at college? All of those are very answerable questions with great labor market data. And so I thought, man, if I can bring labor market data to the millions of Americans who need to make those big life-changing decisions, then they're going to make better decisions, especially if that data is at the point of decision. They're going to make a better decision and they're going to be more successful in their life. And it turns out that was true. Our first business goal was to hire 50 people earning over $50,000 a year in little Moscow, Idaho, where I live. And I know that sounds like a terrible business goal to hire 50 people at $50,000. Like that has nothing to do with business plan or customers. But I knew if our mission was to drive prosperity locally for people who needed it the most so that they could support families, that those people are going to help our business succeed, because we all talk about our people are our most important asset, but the reality is we don't always treat them that way. And so that was my first business goal. And by the grace of God, we hired many hundreds of people and built a $50 million business around this labor market data concept. Really successful business, enjoyed it a lot. I ended up starting a number of other businesses in the meantime, a labor market data, or I already did the labor market data company, a 3D printing data company, a 3D printing company, a student information company, and so most of them around the technology space. Started those. I've had 6 successful exits throughout the years, and God has been very good. I've enjoyed it a lot. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is when you do those exits, it's fun to get a big check, but there is a downside that you lose control. And so the last exit of Economic Modeling Specialists International, EMSI, was to KKR's ESG fund. And I am an unapologetic conservative Christian, and it turns out ESG and unapologetic conservative Christians don't mix very well. And so they asked me to leave the company, even though the company was growing at 25% a year with a 40% margin. So we were wildly successful, but I was removed for perception, not performance. And unfortunately, that is the story that we have for a lot of Americans today, and I'm sure you've heard these stories from a lot of people, which is why I'm so excited to be talking to you. Because if you are a Christian businessman, you have an opportunity to change this narrative for a lot of people. So I ended up leaving EMSI, and this was about 20 months ago. A couple months later, a friend says, hey, you should start a job board and have a thesis around freedom for that job board. And I said, well, actually, I'm doing a housing development. I have a number of commercial buildings. I'm just going to do real estate for a little bit and kind of ignore this craziness on the job board side. And they said, no, you should do it. I think that you're being lazy. I'm like, okay, great. I'm on it. So I created RedBalloon.work, which is my current adventure. So we created this job board as an answer to my problem of if Americans can be free at work, I bet you that they will be free in other aspects of their life. And let me unpack that a little bit. If you've ever read Sun Tzu's The Art of War, he talks about if you are in war, you need to find targets that are both feasible and strategic. Okay, feasible and strategic. So, for instance, if you wanted to go conquer Beauville, Idaho with population 150, that is very strategic. That is not very strategic, but it's totally feasible, right? If you want to go conquer New York City, that is very strategic, but it's not very feasible at all because there's so many people there, right? So you want to find something that is both strategic and feasible. My argument would be that the workplace is a place that is both strategic and feasible, and let me tell you why. I would say that the liberal media, the liberal mainstream media, and the universities today have been conquered by the left, and they have their woke ideology. Their leftist ideology has really infiltrated those organizations to the point that it would be hard to turn them around and bring them back. Imagine going into a Harvard and saying, hey, we're going to make this a Christian college again. That's simply not going to happen in our lifetime, probably. Or going into CNN and saying, hey, we're going to turn this into a good media outlet that is good at news and has a Christian worldview. That's probably just not going to happen in our lifetime. But the workplace is the most recent conquest of the left. This woke ideology has gone in through HR departments. If you read Vivek Ramaswamy's book, Woke Inc., you'll find out that back in 2008, that's kind of when the woke ideology entered the workplace. So woke ideology enters the workplace in 2008. So it hasn't been there that long. And so they're not as firmly entrenched. So I think it is more feasible to win back the American workplace than it is to win back the American university or the American mainstream media. Okay, so we think it's a little bit more feasible. Now, is it strategic? Well, I would argue that if politics are downstream from culture, which I would say they are, we need to get at the root of culture. And we need to figure out how do we fix culture, not just fixing politics. And the answer to that is the fountainhead of good culture should be the church and the family. If we get those squared away, that's going to have a huge impact on culture. We know that. But I would say following those two would be the workplace. The workplace is where you spend most of your waking hours. And if we can redeem the world of work, that is a place where we can change the mindset of the people working for us, and we can redeem culture through the workplace. And so that's why I'm focused on RedBalloon.work. We are focusing on redeeming the world of work. We're focused on helping people be free at work, because if they're free at work, I believe they're going to be free in their family, they're going to be free in their community, in their church, and eventually at the polls as well. So I believe that the workplace is both strategic and feasible. There's still a lot of capitalists there, even if the woke ideology has kind of infiltrated that world. So that's what RedBalloon.work is. We are a job board for those who just want freedom in America again. And I'll be honest, I've run a lot of businesses over the years. This is the only business that I've run where I get unsolicited thank you notes from perfect strangers almost every day. People saying, you've changed the trajectory of my family. You've saved my marriage, because my husband was working at a job where his employer hated his worldview, would not allow him to be free. He found a new job through RedBalloon.work, and suddenly he is bringing home a totally different attitude to his home, to his community, to his church. His family's on a different trajectory, and I've received hundreds of these thank you notes, and we know we've placed thousands of people in awesome jobs. We've also heard from employers. One employer said, everybody I hire through RedBalloon.work is cleansing to my culture, because they're just hardworking conservatives who want to bring value to my business, and they're not a snowflake in the HR department whining about every little thing, right? And so RedBalloon.work today, not only can you post jobs if you're an employer, but we will also help you with writing job postings, with screening your resumes to make sure that they're going to be a good fit for your company, and also doing a first cultural interview. So if you're worried about that interview process, whether you're going to get a lawsuit for asking the wrong question, we can actually take that on for you. And we do this for organizations like Strive Financial or Moms for America or Louder with Crowder and many others, where we're actually helping them filter their candidates and bring the right candidates who are valued aligned to their organization. So if we can help your organization, please let me know. It's Andrew@redballoon.work. We'd love to bring value to you and really bring you the best kind of workers, the ones you're really going to love. So that's what RedBalloon.work is. So I promised you there were 3 things. So my story, we covered that. RedBalloon.work, this is my current adventure, and I love it. It is so much fun. I would encourage you to jump on this journey if you're up for it. And then the last one is I want to give you an encouragement. All of us have probably read Simon Sinek's Start With Why. Interesting book, you know, the golden circle. You need to start with why and then how, what. And if you do it the wrong way, it doesn't work. And so when we're in business as entrepreneurs, as managers, as leaders, as CEOs, we should be thinking, what is our why? What are we fundamentally trying to accomplish as business leaders in our environment? And I would say that the answer is, as a Christian, we have a better why than anybody else, because we know the creator of the universe. We know that that creator built us as mini creators, and that's why we want to create things. That's why we want to start businesses. That's why children start making pictures with crayons, because they want to create, because they're trying to imitate the great creator, the Lord of the universe. And so that is where we as entrepreneurs are actually just using our God-given ability and trying to imitate the great creator. That's why we're in business. Okay, now we know why we've started this business, and you should have a deep understanding of why you're running this business. It's not just to make money. And look, I'm a capitalist, we're all capitalists, and that's a good thing. We should be striving to make money, striving for prosperity for our families, for our community, for our business. That's fantastic. But I would also encourage you to think about a couple other reasons on why you are running your business. We talked about we're imitating the great creator. I would also encourage you, all of your employees, I want you to think of them as not just cogs, as a human resource, right? They're not just a resource to use up, but they are an everlasting soul, and you have an opportunity to speak into their lives in a way that sometimes a pastor can't even do. And I'll give you an example of this. I had an employee that had an anger problem at work. And I knew this because he would yell at an employee who didn't do a good job. And granted, that person needed to do better, but that's not the way you treat employees, not in my work environment. So I talked to him knowing that sin doesn't stay confined. And I said, look, I can address this issue at work because you have an anger problem. And when you speak to other employees like that, it's demeaning. It is not Christ-like. You're not allowed to do it anymore. And so you need to go deal with this, whether it's through pastoral counseling or whatever it is. You need to deal with it all the way down. Well, I found out that a number of people had talked to him about his anger problem over the years, but they didn't really have that lever of, I sign your paycheck, right? And so I was that boss who said, look, I want to deal with this problem that is affecting your work performance, but I also know is affecting every other aspect of your life. And so when I was able to deal with that problem in his life, I found out later his marriage was in a bad spot, and after dealing with the anger in his life, truly dealing with that sin, he was able to be a better husband and father, and it affected all the other aspects of his life. So if you have an employee who's angry or lazy or has a porn problem, any of these things that you see at work and you have the wherewithal to deal with, you are actually going to affect every other aspect of their life. And sometimes that means firing the person, right? We all know that. There are people who simply can't perform, but if you do it while understanding this is their everlasting soul and I'm going to do a great service for them, make them a better person through their work environment with me, you'd be surprised. You're going to get happier employees who stay with you longer because they know you actually care about them as a person. And of course, we all know that. We should be caring about them as a person, but put some handles on it. They have an everlasting soul. Help deal with some sin in their life that affects their work performance, and it will affect every other aspect of their performance. The other reason I would tell you that you need to be in business and thinking about the why that you have for business is you want to be blessing your customers. You want your customers to be better off because they interact with you. And this is how we can witness the love of Christ. It's through our hard work and through our service. We don't have to tell everybody. We don't have to hand out tracts at work. We don't have to wear it on our sleeve. But when we serve as an over-the-top best experience that our customers have, then they are going to know that there's something different. And I'll give you an example of this. I had a users conference every year, and we would bring hundreds of our users to a really cool resort here in Idaho. And a lot of these users were at universities or governments or big HR departments, and they did not share anything about my worldview. But they would come to the conference and they would just feel the joy and the love of Christ, honestly, at the conference with all of the employees that I had. And not all of our employees were Christians. They weren't all believers, but they absolutely adopted this Christian worldview around joy at work, around deeply blessing customers. And I had a number of employees come to the Lord. I had a lot of our customers come to us and say, look, I don't know what it is about you people. You're joyful all the time. We feel this just happiness when we're with you, right? Man, that's what we want as business people. We want to make money. We want to serve our customers so well that they feel this joy. They feel the worldview that you've instilled in your business. And then the last reason that I'm going to give you that you should have a why as a business is when we as business leaders are successful, when we build a business, when we hire people, when we strive, when we change things, you're going to find that you're in a different position in your economy and in your community. And we all know this, right? As the CEO of a large business in a small town here, I would have the mayor say, is there any way you can take me out, that I can take you out to lunch? I'd like to run some things by you. Well, that's a great opportunity for us as Christian leaders to unapologetically live our values out loud. And we are then in a position to do that in our community because we've succeeded at business. And so you should have a why, you should have multiple whys for your business. Whys driven on how do I spread the gospel? How do I live my values out loud? How do I make money that supports my family, drives prosperity in my community, and really is the best product and service that anybody can see? If we do this as business leaders, it will fundamentally change the way that people view us as Christians in our communities. I hope this was helpful. I'm grateful for the conference that's going on. I wish I could be there. I hope you have a wonderful time. Again, I'm Andrew Crapuchettes from RedBalloon.work, and if there's anything we can do to serve you, to make your life better, to help encourage you in your walk with Christ and in your business, I would love to do that. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of the conference.